Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. If you're watching on YouTube, you can find out more about what we do at officehours.global. Our first hour is general discussion about media and virtual production. Second hour is usually something we want to spend a little bit more time on. And today we're going to talk about the Waves plugin, but not the Wave plugin that you know. It's really dealing with accessibility. And Laura Thompson from our own Laura Thompson will be here to kind of walk you through it and talk about how it's used to analyze websites and so on and so forth. So she's going to dig into it and show it to us in the second hour. So we're looking forward to that. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the questions. Mitch, what do we have?
First one in from Andy Kokendorfer in Vieira, Florida. Andy asks, what are the group's New Year's resolution for 2023?
Good, Mitchell.
Well, I think a couple of things. One is I want to destroy all vestiges of virtual backgrounds on Zoom. That's the first one.
That's your thing for everyone, right? Like,
yeah, I'm going to just sort of make it my job to do that. And the second one is I want to dive deep into Cinema 4D. That's my next big thing.
That's great. Go ahead, Courtney.
Besides resolving not to buy any more equipment I can't use, I'm resolving not to, after 2023, I resolve not to answer anyone's question about what are my New Year's resolutions.
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Yeah, I'm going to put a moratorium on all of my purchases until I need it, and then I'm going to purchase it. For me, it's I built out the secondary studio for more editing and production to be doing some TD work. So I really want to put together a show that where I'm not on it, except for behind scenes. So it'll be a lot of fun.
Good, Mark.
I'm going to protect myself from all this AI by getting a rotary phone and a really long RJ11 cable.
Go ahead, Mitchell.
I forgot one. I want to get rid of at least half of all subscription services on TV that end in a plus.
Go ahead, Chris.
I'm going to get rid of this door. You're not going to see this door soon.
There's a resolution. I'm getting
it's going to happen.
I resolved to get rid of this door.
It dawned on me that if I turn my desk 90 degrees, I'll have a solid wall behind me.
And put all kinds of fun things.
But I will have to use that door to gain access to this desk, which is weird, which means from the bedroom, I have to walk through the bathroom, through the closet, boom, into my office.
It's like a secret passage.
It's the Winchester Mystery Studio.
The key is to replace the door with a shelving that looks like just shelves. So what's on? You said the closet's on the other end.
Literally, that door goes to a walk-through closet. You've heard of a walk-in closet. This is a walk-through closet.
You need a wall of shoes right there. That just looks like a wall of shoes, but you have to pull one pair of shoes to open the door, and then this will be your secret.
I'm not saying no. I'm not saying no.
Just think about
idea.
it. Yeah, consider it.
My weekend is ruined.
Yeah, you could make it. I'd have to buy it. You would make it, Laura.
I don't do New Year's resolutions, but I really think that we need to carry the message to those who matter about how technology can support well-being.
That's great. That's very good. Yeah. My big thing is just getting my garage clean. I made some progress over the break, and now I just want to finish it so that it's all nice and clean. And that means that my gym will be back. And so then the other one related to that is losing some weight. that's what everybody wants to do going into every year. All right, next question.
From Paul Terry Wallace in Austin, Texas, asking, in Zoom, I've got multiple Insta360 links in Zoom, and they're all listed as Insta360 link. Can I rename them, or is there some way to tell them apart? If not, can we make this a feature suggestion to Zoom as a group?
Yeah, we're going to have to start writing down these feature suggestions because we talk about them and then we just don't get to them. So someone's going to have to be the exchequer of the requests. So anyway, I think it's a good. I don't know how to do it. I'm actually testing. I just got some more cameras. I'm going to test the Zoom Room related to that, and I think that may be a challenge. Go ahead, Chris.
I have a link, but I also have the Ozbot, which is the slightly older version of it. I was updating some software yesterday, and down came a utility called the Ozbot Web blah, blah. It's something about, it's a utility to help use it as a webcam. And there is a button on it, a very distinct round button in the upper left-hand corner. It's not a button, it's a label. And it says 1. And it's just a big number 1. And when you click on it, because it screams, click on me. When you click on it, it depresses like it's a button. And I only have one of them. I know that you're building your mini webcam 360 link multicam studio, Alex, but this thing screams like it's the selector between multiple Ozbots if you had multiple of them. So I'm wondering if anybody does have more than one. I know our friend Felipe has one. It'd be interesting if indeed that is what that button-ish thing is.
Because I'm playing with I'm really working on this idea of a really small little studio kit, that is, this tiny thing that I can fit into a 1510 or even smaller, but that 1510 is kind of the target. And I am going to be digging into this a little bit because I have 4 of the Insta360s, and I want to see if the Zoom room will work, but I'm also trying to figure out how I'm going to put audio in. And I do think that the question is who should fix it? Is it Zoom or should it really be Insta360? Because they really should have a way. They have different names. So the cameras in the Insta360, I already know that if I put 3 cameras into into the computer, it will show up as they have different numbers. They have their own little serial numbers inside of the Insta360 app, so you can go to one to the next. But I don't know if that name that name. I don't think it's exposed to external applications, and I think that's the problem. So it's really almost a request for Insta360, not Zoom, to allow when you open up that app to define that, and it might be there, and we may need to look at it.
This is an example of how we, and to a certain extent, certainly this community, but a lot of people, we live on the fringe. I've had it described as the lunatic fringe of the bell curve. And manufacturers, software and hardware, their profit margin is addressing the 80% of the bell curve and not the 10% pointy tips. How many people buy Insta360s in bulk, as you have, Alex, and are running into this problem? So
the big thing is that this gets back into why we need to start requesting things as a group, which we will start doing next week. So we'll figure out what we're going to talk about next week, and then we're going to do one every week in 2023. So there'll be something that we've decided we want to change. The difference is that the we may be in the bell curve in the top 1%, but if we send in 200 requests, we will appear to be in the middle. It doesn't matter where we are. They're like, wow, a lot of people. Because if we sent to Insta360 probably 200 or 300 requests for this to be fixed, it's probably more requests than
it changes the bell curve.
It's probably more than any other request they've had in the last year since they released the camera.
There was a story recently that you shared about, it may have been Carluccio, where you put out the bat signal, if you will.
We were in a session on Saturday, and admittedly, part of it was because Andy drew so many people to it that we're all using Zoom ISO, and so he's explaining how to use it. But at that moment, we just decided, let's go ask Universe if they'll return. We need better integration with Zoom ISO to Universe. And I got an email back and said we heard it. We got more requests for that feature in the last 20 minutes than we've had all requests ever. So they were like, we hear you. Okay, we'll do it. So we got their undivided attention. And as we try to grow over in 2023, that becomes it's a factor that allows us to help move things in the industry forward in a way that I think makes sense for a lot of people, not just us. Next question.
And the next question is coming in from Alex Lindsay in Novato, California. Alex asked, have our panelists bought any new toys over the holiday break?
Go ahead, Mitchell.
I got this fantastic deal on an iPad Pro that you wouldn't believe how little I paid for it. This was so inexpensive. I can't believe that the price was so low for a Pro.
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
So I've been doing a few different upgrades with my 3D printer. I put what's called a direct drive into the printer, so I don't have to worry about the little Bowden tube that went back and forth. I upgraded the motherboard to a more silent board, and then I also put on what's called a CR Touch, which allows for bed leveling a lot better. I had an old one on there, and it had like a red dot coming out of it, and I wanted to get rid of it. So this one's completely encased in like a smoky black case.
Go ahead, Chris. Hello, Chris. Can't hear you. Oh, there you go.
I bought the Ultra.
Oh, look at you.
And that's part of the reason why I need to turn the room 90 degrees, because the
Ultra's
desk,
too big.
well, think about this as anybody who's building a workspace, and some of us think about it a lot. This desk currently is pushed up against a wall. It is nearly impossible to work on it. Part of the reason I'm turning the desk 90 degrees is it will expose the back of it to open space where it is easier to work on. I literally can't. I can't get at everything in the room to plug this in and install it. And I bought a new Visa mount because I bought the cinema display and blah, blah, blah. And it's a nightmare to try and work when you're up against a wall. So it's a process.
It's going to be great. Yeah. So, I got a couple things in the last couple of days, actually. I got this little thing. This is one of those arms, those little magic arms, the little newer magic arms. And I feel a little bad for buying it because I know what they did, but I still bought it because I can't afford Nogas. The old newer arms were like Nogas, they were inspired by Nogas. These are almost identical to Nogas.
The older, newer arms?
This is the older newers. Yeah, the older newers. So it's a lot stiffer of an arm with a little clamp. And I'm using these. I use these for like putting iPhones in places with timers and stuff like that. I was pretty excited about that. I'm upgrading. I got these MV7Xs, which don't have the USB, which are a lot less expensive. So I got a couple of these. So this, if you give up the USB, these little guys are like $170, or something like that. So I was pretty excited about that. And then the final thing that I got that I was really excited about was we have a complaint by guests that's come up a couple times that when we send out our mics, that Mike, whoever designed like the mic threading, I wish I could go back in time and just go, no, not like that, because it's just the worst. It is like the worst. And so I hate doing it. And I realize we have people that complain about trying to get it on correctly. This is a quick release. You pull this down. So you put this on your mic stand. You have this. You just go, see, now it's not going to work. And that's it. Like there's no screwing on. I'm getting these for all my mics. Like I'm just going to have all the mic stands are just going to have I'm just going to snap things onto it rather than having it there. So that made me very happy.
All my band mics have those snaps on it. It's awesome.
Are they good?
Yeah, welcome to the 90s, Alex. I'm
sorry. Quick releases. I've been screwing them on. I now know that was foolish, but now I'm going to fix it. And I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew because it's really great. All right, next question. And they cost like $20. It's not expensive.
JB Windle in Thailand asking, I'm currently in Cambodia and will be visiting Angkor Wat tomorrow. Does the panel have any tips for making the most of the experience and coming home with the best photo and video possible?
Oh, man. Okay. This might take a minute because I've done this a couple times. So, JB, what you want to do, there is the main temple that's down in the front, and there's two of course, now I can't. The one time I need my little thing. Okay, so the main temple is right here. We'll just say there are two big pools on either side of the main temple, and then there's the walkway that goes up to it. There is a little patch of ground. It's about a meter by meter, like this sticks out of this patch right here. That shoots one of the photos that you see in every. You have to stand right on that patch. And that'll be hard because if you show up at sunrise, there'll be 200 people wrapped around that little patch. So what you have to do is, if you back up and think about that temple, and you have the runway, and then there's a walkway that you go through it, and then right here there's a main entrance. There's some wooden stairs and a main entrance, and you have to go through that entrance, and it's against one of the bridges that's there. That goes across, and so you go across that, and then you go over, and then you can walk down this area, or you can just walk down. You can just walk. It's faster to walk over here. Here are the pools. Now, 2,000 people go over here. They're on the wrong side. They don't know that because they've never been to Angkor Wat, but if you've done it as many times as I have, so they're on the wrong side. So there's 2,000 people that stand on the wrong side of the thing and take bad pictures because it's the wrong side. What you want to do is get to this one little patch. So you have to get here at 4:45 in the morning. Get there at 4:45 in the morning. Remember that it's really hot and humid. So if you're coming out of one of the hotels in Siem Reap, you got to put if you have an outdoor or whatever, put your lenses out there, put a desiccant in it. There's a bunch of things that you want to try to figure out how to do, but it's going to take a while if you've got a big lens for it to be where you want it to be as far as the temperature goes. So then you get there at 4:45. If you see anybody that is Cambodian there at 4:45, they are a runner. Like they are there being hired by a photographer to take this space, and you'll either decide to go faster than them, or oftentimes they won't have any gear. They're there. So if they're Cambodian, they will be a runner for a photographer to get to that position. So if you're lucky, you won't see any Cambodians. You'll just see a bunch of tourists, and that means that you'll be able to walk relatively quickly, because there will be 4, 5, 6 people. But if you walk with intention, you'll get there before they do. And then you want to get your tripod set up there. If you have a friend, when I had Kevin Hansen, have them stand behind you, because people will press up against you because they really want that space, especially if there's some National Geographic, and then they get really upset. So so that's the space you want to be in. But that's where you start the day, is right in that space. Everyone will go to the main temple at the beginning, because that's what everybody knows. So everyone's going to go there. What you want to do is you want to take your pictures of the sunrise there. Then you're going to hump it back out, and you'll go out. And when you go straight out, there's like a little stand, like one of those little people that cook things, and he makes these little sandwiches that have this. I don't even know what he puts in the eggs. It's a little egg sandwich. It's amazing. So that's what you do next. Go have that little sandwich, because it's so good. It's my favorite breakfast, period, in the world. Anyway, so have that. Then you walk over to Bayon Temple. And the reason you go to Bayon Temple at that point is because everyone went to the main temple, and Bayon Temple is almost empty. And Bayon Temple is far more impressive in a lot of ways. So get over to Bayon Temple. You can walk there, but I usually just get a car. Get a car and have them drive you over so you can make time. The place is a big place, so if it looks like it's going to be a little bit of a walk, just get in a car, because if you only have a day, I've always done it with more than one day. Anyway, Bayon Temple is going to be where you see lots and lots of photos that there's incredible things around the outside edges, but you can get to the outside edges anytime. Go up to the second floor, and that's where that's where you want to see all the sculpture and everything else, and you get to walk through it, and there won't be a lot of people. Once you get to about 9:00 in the morning, it's almost you can't move. There's all these tourists that are going through in waves. So it's really worth going there early in the morning, because those are the two high pressure locations that you're going to find. But if you go to Bayon, you'll be able to enjoy it a lot more. Then after that, what I would do is I'd go to, there's a Elephant Terrace. And then off of Elephant Terrace, there's kind of a large old palace that's down there that's pretty cool. There is if you ping me, I'll try to send you. There is off in that area, you can walk off kind of into the woods. It's not into the woods, but it's off there. And there is just the most amazing reservoir that's there. I mean, it is, and no one knows where it is, and it takes a long time to get to, and you have to walk over. And we used to find it, and we used to spend the afternoon there. That was where we kind of calmed down, and just kind of, it's very quiet. There'll be like 4 people there. And then when you come back, now in the afternoon, that's when you want to come back, because all the main tourists are tired now. And so they're not they've been beaten by the sun and everything else. And so that's when you want to go back over to the main temple, because they're not, there's a lot less people. They all came, they were all real excited. They got there early in the morning and they start weeding out, and it becomes a lot less troublesome at about 3:00 in the afternoon. And then you can go through the main temple, and there's some, take as much memory as you can, take lots of photos. If you're going to take if you happen to be taking an A7S4 with you, ping me, because I need you to take some photos for me. So anyway, I want to see what the difference is on some stuff. So anyway, that's my recommendation if you're going to Angkor Wat. I've shot it a few times, and I got to spend a couple days there doing that. I did that pattern over and over and over again to capture some stuff that I was doing. Anyway, there you go. Next question.
Dan Goldstein from White Plains, New York is asking, using Zoom OSC Companion only loads participant names after they've been turned on their camera. Is that the proper behavior? Is there a way they can be loaded as soon as they join the meeting?
There should be a way that you can load them as soon as they join the meeting, but I am not 100% sure. What you want to do is use the I made a call. So what you want to do? I didn't make a call, but one of our friends is watching and said the answer is to use the Zoom ID as tracking mode and subscribe to all participants versus the gallery. Oh, there you go. All participants instead of gallery, and use the Zoom ID as tracking mode. So there you go. Next question.
Robbie Clark Snooks from Chilliwack. How do you deal with a regular sports client you invoice monthly but have been waiting on payment for 2 months? They've paid within a few days for years, but since raising prices due to inflation, they refuse to pay within the agreed time.
Go ahead, Mark.
So this is really a tough position to be in, but what you want to do is try and separate the people who are in front of the client from the people who are collecting the money, if you can. It depends how big the businesses are, but you don't want the client making the decision to be asked for money from a project manager or somebody who's a salesperson. You want that to come from somebody who's acting as a bookkeeper for you, who's calling that bookkeeper at that company, so that you're keeping yourself or the people making the decisions away from that, so they're not thinking about that every time you try and get a new job.
Go ahead, Mitchell.
Generally, my advice is if it's a small company you're working for and they're running behind in payment, you're doing them a disservice to extend too much credit to them, because it's going to get to a number that's going to be too big for them, and you're going to have to start some kind of legal action, and then you're done. If you do that, that's not a good idea. The other problem is that a lot of larger organizations have been absorbed by bigger organizations, and it's just their general accounting method to pay within 60 or 90 days. And there's really nothing you can do about it. They're just going to continue to do that. And we're talking big sports organizations. I don't want to name their names here, but I'm seeing it over and over again. So you kind of have to build that into your billing up front and just be ready for it, because it's going to happen.
Good, Courtney.
Well, there are a couple of solutions to this. It depends on what you're doing for the sports client. If you're doing a job that you could be considered an employee, an hourly wage, you could go on a time card. And they usually, I'm not sure where Chilliwack is, but if it's in the United States, they have to pay employees within 2 weeks, part-time employees. So that would increase it, but you'd have to fill out a time card. And sometimes if you bill for equipment, you can put that on a time card as box rental. So it's an additional amount that'll be processed by the payroll company, so it'll go out within 2 weeks. If you're invoicing for services and you're a regular client, it depends on how big this sports client is. If it's part of a conglomerate like ESPN or Disney or somebody like that, they have an accounts payable department that's probably been offshored to Bangladesh or somewhere in India. And so getting paid, you best open up a vendor account with that company to, streamline getting paid off of invoices. And that way you can submit your invoices if you have a vendor account with the major corporation who does accounts payable as routine. And You can upload your invoices electronically these days, and they get paid a little faster than if you're submitting an invoice to somebody who has to submit it to somebody else, who has to submit it to somebody else, who has to go online and file it, and somebody in another country somewhere has to approve it and get it paid, and it'll take 60 to 90 days to get paid. That's generally what the major corporations are doing these days.
Go ahead, Chris.
A couple things, Robbie. The fact that they've changed their behavior is indeed potentially a problem, and you should definitely work at it. But in the big picture, I will, I will say that a lot of companies, a lot of people that are new to freelancing, and it doesn't sound like you are a little alarmed that it might take, 30, 45, 60, 90 days to get paid. What I always tell people, and what served me well when I was freelance, was that if you get into the stream, if you will, and you realize that all your money is coming in 30, 60, 90 days late, you just get used to the fact that in March, you're living off of the income that you made in January. And you kind of once you get over that first couple of months where you're not getting paid, it turns out to be just fine. However, I will also say about 30 years ago, I had a client who I did a bunch of work for. And one of the guys I was working with had a brother who worked in the accounting department at that company. And he was literally instructed by his superiors that when invoices came in, that he was to take them and put them on the corner of his desk and wait. And wait until he got called. Hey, I haven't seen my money. And at that point, he was instructed to say, oh, you know what? I see it right here. I don't know what happened. I'll make sure that goes out today. So being a squeaky wheel is not annoying. Sometimes that's part of the process. It shouldn't be. I think it's somewhat immoral to do that. Yes, I said that. But it is the reality of large companies trying to manage cash flow. He was actually told, don't pay it until you get a call. He also said, and this is particular to this company, he said to his brother, he goes, don't ever give me an invoice over $10,000. And he says, well, why? And he goes, if it hits that threshold, it has to go through a whole different level of approval internally. He says, I don't care how many invoices you send that are $9,999, but don't ever give me one over. That's particular to that company, but it's if you can ask around, it might be good to know.
And what Chris said, whatever your price went up, it may have gone over some threshold that you don't know about that now is a whole different ball of wax for them. Because I know that like for many government agencies in DC, for instance, is a good example, is $2,000 can you put on a credit card and you'll get paid that day. You'll finish it, you'll send them an invoice and they'll just as long as you're okay with getting paid on a credit card, they'll just handle it. If it goes over $2,000, triple bidding and process and things and people you have to talk to, and you'll get paid in 120 days. And so it's amazing. What it does is it creates this crazy ecosystem around it of everyone figuring out ways around that number, because that's the thing, and so just something to kind of keep in mind. Go ahead, Mitchell.
I used to have a big client here in Wilmington that would pay all of their bills out of Colstrip, Montana, which couldn't be any farther away. And I think basically they might have been playing afloat, but the amount of time it took to get something through a bank that far away and then the mailing coming back, best to get direct deposit. A lot of modern corporations are doing that now.
And you just have to decide how important the client is. Like how hard you push. I think some people, like, if this is your bread and butter, I would take Chris's tact and just find a way that it works. That you find a way that it works for you to get paid, in the time, if that's your bread and butter. So you got to be very careful of starting to contractors who be pinging people and going, hey, just want to check in. This is something that you should do. Getting aggravated over email with someone who's got to pay you, you'll get paid. You just may not get any more work. They'll just make a decision like, oh, I don't want to do that anymore. And so you just have to be careful whether they're in the right or wrong. I've seen it's probably almost every job.
Be nice about it.
Somebody goes off on someone and they they get their check. They just aren't going to get called again. And so you just have to take it. A lot, when we were doing when Pixel Corps was doing tons and tons of large corporate, we just kind of we start reminding people at about 35 days because it was a 30-day invoice. Hey, just checking in at about 35 days, not at 30 days, but 35. Then again at 45. And then we started getting a little stressed at 60, but we wanted to get paid at 90. Like that was kind of thing going, Chris.
Yeah, I will also say several years ago, 25 years ago, something like that, I used to do a lot of work at the internal studios at Hewlett-Packard. I don't mind telling you who it was because here we go. And it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare getting paid by Hewlett-Packard. I hated it. Every day I'd work in their studio, it would be 2 days on the phone of like arguing and what's going on. And so finally, one day I got called for a studio gig there, and I said, hey, by the way, I just want to let you know, new year, beginning of the year, I'm raising my rates a little bit. And he goes, oh, okay, yeah, what are you raising it to? And I tripled my day rate. And he goes, whoa, what's going on? And I said, well, look, every time I work for you guys, it takes me 2 days on the phone to get paid. So I got to get paid for my time. So I'm tripling my rate. And he goes, hey, you're a contractor. You do what you want. But I got to tell you, if you raise your rate that much, I'm never going to be able to hire you. And I said, promise? And that was it. I was done with them. There are times where you have to cut ties and you go, you know what, this is just too much work.
And
too much work.
The main thing that I've done over the past is I just slowly replace that client with somebody else, and I don't ever have any interaction. I don't have any confrontation. I don't even tell them there's a problem. I just keep taking the work. But at some point, they get my assistance instead of me. At some point, they get it's just at some point like I build up a system that is no longer. I just kind of slowly move them to the door. And what's funny is the reason that's important is that occasionally they come back and go, hey, we got another job, because they need you. And then you always go, it always begins like, wow, this is actually pretty fun to work with him. I don't know why I don't work with him anymore. But by the end, you're like, oh, I remember why. Yeah. So anyway,
I have no problem if I never see the inside of the Hewlett-Packard studios.
But I'm just saying, it's a small world, and it's easier to be not labeled as a troublemaker and just be busy. The easiest way to do stuff is to fill up your time with other work, and then just go, hey, I'm sorry, I'm booked on those days. I can't make it. That's the easiest way to do it. And again, if a client continues to be difficult, rather than getting into a tit for tat with them, is really look at how you utilize the work that you're doing to find other work, and bring it in and fill and backfill that until it's not a problem to just move on. Next question.
James Fosley in Minneapolis, Minnesota. James asks, when Zoom or other software services change a feature that ruins your workflow, what is your strategy after leaving feedback?
Not that he's bitter. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
It really depends on, first of all, if it's an enhancement or a bug that comes from an enhancement. If it's an enhancement, there might be some other reasons that we don't see that they're doing this, for instance, security or anything like that. So the first thing I would do is I would go to something like an after hours, and I would or a group wherever it's appropriate, and then just basically say, hey, what do you guys think of this? How can we work around this? How can we fix this on our own? If that's something that becomes an inhibitor, like it stops video or whatnot, then putting in tickets and then doing a mass ticket through a group, so we can all benefit from this would be the next plan of action. But first of all, try to resolve it on your own is my first thought.
Good, Mitchell.
Collective bargaining. It works. It's always worked. And I think the idea that we have a mass support ticket, coordinated by our friends here at Office Hours, is going to be very interesting because it's going to be a force to be reckoned with. We're going to move the needle, and that's the important thing.
And the key is when we make requests as a group, we just want to make sure we make intelligent ones that we're not just wading around into those things, but we so probably the best thing to do is to come up here. Tell us what the actual issue is that has changed your workflow, and then we can suss out like who do we ask? Like we were talking about this earlier with Insta360. Do we ask Zoom to fix something where you can name the cameras, or do we ask Insta360 to fix, or do we ask both? So those and try to get both of those things. And so I think that bringing up an after hours, but also bringing up an office hours and saying this was changed and now I can't do X and Y and Z. Why is that the case? And let us discuss it, because there's a lot of people that watch this show. Next question.
From Douglas Carmichael, Douglas asks, what professional headset would you recommend with a condenser mic?
Go ahead, Courtney.
Well, if you're looking for professional headsets, I like Audio-Technica and Sennheiser, and what you want to search for is broadcast headsets, and that will be the professional type. Here's one from Audio-Technica. It's about $400. And there's also some from Sennheiser. You can get them from anywhere from $279 or $300 to the much more expensive ones that are closer to $600. And most of these, terminate. You won't find any USB headsets in the professional or broadcast area. These are designed with XLR plugs for the microphone, and usually a separate. The cable will Y out into a headphone plug, which is either 1/4 inch or 1/8 inch, and an XLR plug, so that you can take that audio into a mixer of some sort. And that's most broadcast microphones will get that to you. And I'd say Sennheiser or Audio-Technica would be a good choice to look at theirs.
Go ahead, Mitchell.
Plus one on Courtney's suggestion of the Sennheiser. Used many of them. And yes, they do have the Y connector, which will work with most devices that you need to separate out the mic and the headset.
DPA also makes a line. If you want them to be low profile, they make a low profile one that rolls into your ears as well. So you can have them be more self-contained that way as well. Next question.
From Bob Sturdivant in San Antonio, Texas, we'll be looking at comms packages, a plum case cell SAT. The data through SATCOM seems a bit overpriced at $3,000 for 2 gigs. Any panelist with some other suggestions for emergency comms?
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
It's going to sound a little bit like a plug, but it doesn't mean to be. Our friend Keenan Campbell, he is partnering with an organization that has an emergency router. I've mentioned it before, and it's designed especially for disaster recovery type stuff. And what's nice about the system that Keenan sells is you have a very moderate buy-in to use it. Now, it's not a whole lot of data that comes with it, but it gives you the router, the accessibility, and it's one of these wireless routers that has like 3 SIM cards, so it seamlessly bonds the 3 things, and it's a bunch of stuff. You'd have to talk to Keenan about it. You can find him on Discord. But it's specifically designed for emergency situations. So it's a very moderate price to get into it. And then if you run over the monthly data, you're buying additional data at wholesale rates. So it seems anemic in terms of the amount of data you get, but it might be worth looking into because it's specifically for disaster recovery type stuff.
Yeah, and I would also look at Starlink. I mean, if you have wide open areas, depending on what you're planning to do, I think Starlink may be a good solution because they're not really worried about 2 gigs. I mean, a lot of these business models of the SATCOMs that you're talking about, plum cases, those are they're using older technology. so the another thing to look at is Viasat. Viasat, I think we bought a Viasat dish for about $5,000 one time, and then we had to pay some monthly charge, but we had a lot more transfer than that. It was really just the speed at which we could connect to the satellites. Now, that satellite and the satellite that you're using most likely is using a very it depends on what wavelength. So it's a very tight wavelength, and so it won't go through things like rain. So you have to decide. That's why you want to back it up with cellular. So we use the Viasat with a peplink, and the peplink had a bunch of cell cards in it, and then we merge those together. So it'll lean on the satellite if it can. It will lean on the cellular and we kind of rolled our own inside of that. But the Viasat is something you probably want to do some research. They do have a commercial, but not they have residential as well. But I wouldn't use that. Go ahead, Chris.
And also, Keenan's device will bond and switch between the 3 cell things, and you can patch in the Elon Musk thing. What's it called? Starlink.
Yeah, because it's also any of those routers that do that, or it's just all it looks like to that router is an Ethernet cable. You just got to make sure if you get in the Starlink, you got to get the Ethernet adapter. Anyway, because it's not a regular Ethernet adapter, of course. It's some special one that takes 3 weeks to get to you. Not that I'm bitter. Next question.
Matthias Utila from Helsinki, Finland asking, using PlayOB with browser on a PC with Windows 10. When XR18 is plugged in with USB, Chrome does not appear to the OS audio mixer, but Firefox does. What could cause USB to disable one browser audio, but not the other? Observe some same behavior with two PCs.
I think that you may want to go into Chrome's, go into permissions and see if it's been given the permission to have access to that function. It may be an access issue inside of Chrome. Like, I don't think that it in Firefox may be running a little wild on that, but it may be just a not being allowed to see that as a mic output or mic input. Maybe the issue there, because if it doesn't have that drop down that asks you, can I use this, then it may not be acknowledging it. Once you say no to that, it may not know. It sets it somewhere in the advanced settings that it can't do that, and you have to go and find that is. So at some point in time in Chrome, if you did that, especially, and this would carry over to another PC if you're logging into Chrome. So if you're logging into Chrome and your user is on both of them, you may have the same problem in both areas. I'm just guessing, but that could be the issue. Next question.
Paul Terry Wallace from Austin, Texas is here. Paul asks, can anyone demo how to create a YouTube clip from a YouTube video or live stream like Office Hours uses YouTube's own, assuming the YouTube creator has allowed viewers to clip content enabled?
Good, Chris.
Yeah, Paul. So here's what you do. If you go to your browser here and you go to here's one of my favorite channels, Matt's Off-Road Recovery. A lot of fun. So here's the clip, or here's the video. It's a 13-minute, 31-second video. Down here's a little button, says clip. I hit this clip, and then up here I get to choose the in point and the out point of the thing that I want to make a clip out of, and then I can share that clip. I could give it a little description. I'll be honest, I can't remember if it, I think it even puts it on my YouTube channels, or I can't remember exactly how it does, but that's how you do it. You hit the clip button, you pick an in and out, done.
Good, Jeffrey.
Exactly. The only thing is if it's a Creative Commons or if it's a public, the copyright. And so some of these videos you might not be able to do.
Yep. Next question.
James Fosseline in Minneapolis, Minnesota has a question. My desk equipment currently looks like a swirling mess of cables. How do you keep everything orderly when constantly changing equipment?
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
You take all those cables and you unplug them, you wrap them up, and then you throw them away. No, the cable management, that's the toughest thing in the world. I do a lot of 3D prints of cable clips because I can make some really cool ones that have little latches on them and arms, and I can resize them big and resize them really small. Other than that, a lot of times I use twist ties, and I save twist ties, especially the really long ones, because then you can make them into snakes, and you can tie them up, you can twist them, you can cut them, and a hanging wire is another one that works really well if you want something a little bit more sturdy.
Go ahead, Chris.
Recurring theme: Fenwick turning his desk. Part of the reason is I want to turn the desk is because it is, what did you call it? A swirling mess of cables. My desk is actually worse than that. I almost scurried and grabbed it out of the pocket of my jacket. I just bought these little devices. I'll put a link in the event chat. It's designed to hang your toothbrush. This is going to sound weird. It's designed to hang your toothbrush on it, and it has a sticky thing, and you can put it on your mirror, or you can put it on the wall, or in the shower. Some people brush their teeth in the shower. And it dawned on me, this would be a great thing to just clip a couple of wires into. But it was like $8, and I think I got like 8 of them or something like that. I'll put the link. It's an interesting idea. I actually bought it for toothbrushes, but it might actually work with cables.
Go ahead, Courtney.
Well, I have different solutions. I of course use the Velcro strips that you can get on Amazon by the thousands. Little buckle type strips to put around one cable so that you can run it up into a circle and tie it to something else. Never use nylon tie wraps to put cables in, because as soon as you get all those cables lashed together with a nylon tie wrap, then you're going to need to cut it apart, because, hey, You got to pull something out. So I also 3D printed things like this. This is made out of urethane, and it's just springy. And so I just loop up the cables, hang it in this. I put a command strip piece of Velcro on the back so I can stick it onto a vertical surface at some point, and then I just loop up the cables, pull this up, and then when I got to pull the cables out, it just comes out like that. And it keeps those cables that you're not using out of the way and out from under.
Go ahead, Mitchell.
I use two things. It works great. One of them is this. It's a cable management sleeve, and it looks like a piece of neoprene with a zipper on it, and it's really handy on the ATEM Extreme with all the HDMI cables coming out. You just feed them in there, you put the zipper in, and off you go. The other thing I do that makes things much tidier on a desk is there's a basket. It's like a wire basket that's built like a U that can bolt underneath your desk on the far side, and then you just lay your cables in that, which is very sophisticated. It's very simple because as you're changing things, you can just lift them out, move them over here, and do whatever you need to do. I like that the best. I have that basket screwed onto the bottom of my desk all the way around so that I can run cables everywhere.
I am okay with it being a pile of cables. so like I change stuff so often. Like I'm pulling things in, putting things out, moving things around, and I really try to keep dressing it the way I normally dress things for production. And I was just like, I'm spending more time managing the cables than I am just doing the thing. And so I tear my system apart now. I've gotten now into the habit. It's stuck during COVID. I didn't change it because I was like, I don't know where anything goes. I don't know how to put it back together. It's just working. And now I've gotten into the habit about every month or two, I just tear the whole thing apart and put it back together. And it's kind of, I usually sit in after hours. Sometimes you guys hear me talking because I'll listen to you guys talking in after hours while I'm just tearing the whole place apart and putting it all back in. And when I do that, it's what's funny is that when you do it over and over again, you get really good at it. Now you know where everything is. It's and you get and it's better each time. And you make it creates this churn that makes you make changes. And you go, oh, now I want this to sit right here. Like right now, what I'm working on is where I want my switcher and whether I'm using SDI. I'm going to switch the whole thing over to SDI soon. And I'm done with. I just can't take the HDMI anymore. So anyways, I'm going back to SDI. So once I finish that, then I'm going to redo it all again because the main reason that I want to go back to SDI is because I can make my own cables. I can't make HDMI cables. It's driving me crazy that I just don't have what I need and when I need it. So anyway, next question.
From Ronnie Hofsøy in Tromsø, Norway, I'm looking to do some research into Insta360 Link as a micro mobile multicam setup with video follow audio for boardroom meetings. Could this actually be done entirely inside Isadora? Can Isadora auto mix audio?
You should be able to have it. You could build something that would allow Isadora to auto mix audio. And by the way, for our producers, start voting on those questions because we're not going to get to the end of them before we get to the next hour. The main thing, what you're looking for is you have to have the individual mic inputs go into Isadora if you're going to do an auto mix. So it has to see it can't really be audio follows video from the webcams. You really need clean audio from each person so that it can kind of do its auto switching to know where it is. I mean, you could theoretically do it with the cameras, but it's going to be really hard for it to figure out which one is the loudest if you've got 3 cameras in the same room. But if you mic each person, then it will really know who it is. And what we're hoping for is Insta360 will also give us an API, because the advantage of an API is that which is one thing we are going to ask them for. So is the API, because it means that I know that Mitchell's talking. I could not only jump to a camera, but have it zoom over, grab preset 3 and over here because that person's talking. So you could build a very complex system with the Insta360s if we had an API. Go ahead, Mitchell.
I guess another option would be to use a mixer, like a Dumont mixer that has contact closures to let you know which one's active, and then use that somehow to communicate with the camera.
Well, yeah, but the problem is you can't talk to the Insta360. That's the problem. So that's what we need to have. There are some basic UVC controls that are available. So theoretically, you could use UVC controls over the camera to get it to zoom in and build your presets. But I think you could do it all in Isadora. Absolutely. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael asking, would the use of Airbnb for work or other similar services help reduce cost in the touring industry versus the reliance on international hotel operators like Marriott or Hyatt?
Go ahead, Jesse.
I don't think so, judging from their website. It looks like they're trying to build personalized team building experiences for businesses to, rent out and send their team there for a weekend or something like that. And if what you need when you're touring is a reliable, iterative experience from city to city to city, and it doesn't look like it's being built in that direction either.
Yep. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. I don't trust Airbnb to save me, especially if I'm going there for business. If there's something that happens, I had one Airbnb where the person disallowed me to take more than one bag into my room, and I usually travel with 3 different bags, and then of course you had to take your shoes off to go in there. It was a nightmare, and I've heard way too many nightmares, and the only people that can solve it are Airbnb. And if you're there at that point in time trying to get your room, get settled in so you can get to work, this just becomes a big hassle that you just don't want to deal with.
I've done a lot of both, and I'll say that Airbnb is really quirky. Never, ever, ever rent a room in Airbnb. Always rent the whole space. Like if you can't get the whole space, don't do it. People are weird. Like I'm just saying, the people, it's just it's a weird thing. And so shared bathrooms is really the problem, because then you want to rent a whole space. You want to put a bunch of people in it. People don't want to share the bathroom. The folks on the tour would be livid if you did it for 180 days and they had to share anything, and it won't be cost effective if you do it as whole locations, and the rooms are weird. So I would stick to hotels. Next question.
Ronnie Hofsey in Tromsø, Norway, asking, suggestion towards the Link Micro Mobile Multicam Kit audio processing and physical interface with minimum 16 inputs, allowing for auto mix and software like a Link that he's showing. It's for Fuzzy Logic Auto Mix Control or Isadora Video Follow Audio.
Yeah, I think that it's just a matter, all you need is an interface that's going to get all of those audio channels into your computer. Now, you could probably do that you could have a mixer like an X32 and have that using Dante to send all the individual tracks in. Then you're mixing the show, and it has the Dugan auto mix you can only get up to 6 or 8 channels on the X32. But if you have a mixer that can handle more than that, or you add a Dugan to it, you can have it do its own auto mix. But what you want to control Isadora are the raw audio tracks, coming in, so that it can, the pre-fader audio tracks coming in to guide Isadora into what you want. Next question.
Michael Fosbane from wherever. I teach music using Brio cams in Zoom. Is there a way to switch cams using my Stream Deck without scrolling through the cams or using the mouse? For example, a button for each cam.
Go ahead, Chris.
Michael, this is a really good question. And yes, absolutely, very easily. What you want to do, and there are physical ways to do this, but this is really simple. You could do it before the end of this show. Download OBS. You can create a scene, and you can create a scene for each camera that you want to use. Let's say you have the close-up of the keyboard and the close-up of you talking and the close-up of the sheet music, whatever. Create a scene for each one, and then you select a source for each one, and that's where you're going to do your mousing and scrolling. And wait, is it this camera? This camera? Oh, it's this one. You'll do that. Then it is very simple in the Stream Deck software when you get the OBS extension or whatever they call it, where you just create a button and you say, when I press this button, go to scene 1. And when I press this button, go to scene 2. And this button, go to scene 3. Very simple to do. If you can't figure it out, reach out to me through Discord. I will say, and I've been holding this little bit of knowledge back, but Alex, I'm very interested in your mini multicam studio. I'm actually toying with the idea, I know this sounds weird, of making a 3-camera studio with a Mac Mini and a Stream Deck in the cab of my truck for Zoom when I'm on long road trips. I went to Denver a month and a half ago. Had a great time and spent so much time on Zoom with my friends here, and I wanted to be able to show out the front window, or show a passenger, or even just to monitor. I want to put a camera looking out into
Right.
the bed, and I want to build it all on a Mac Mini with a Stream Deck.
I think it'd be fun. I think it'd
Yeah.
totally work. Yeah, absolutely. Or an old phone with like I would probably do it with Memo Live, but the because OBS makes me crazy. But the
I like OBS. I know you. I know you have the pushback, but
it's the crash. It's the crashes that drive me crazy. So the but Ecamm and Memo Live of course work as well for those kinds of solutions. And so but I think that I think a lot of us are really thinking. I think that there's something about the for me, the Insta360s that really opened up like, hey, I want to build this little studio. Let's go to the next question.
I don't know if the 360 survived the road.
Next question, Eduardo Augustine from Panama asking, has anyone else watched the show Dance Monsters? Watched the behind the scenes, but it doesn't give how they really do it. Is this Unreal Engine?
Yeah, I think it came in just before our show started, so I wasn't able to actually, see the, let's see here, hold on. Yeah. Sorry, that's the beginning of the video that I'm looking through, but they're showing some behind the scenes. So the link there, has the behind the scenes of how they're putting it together, and there's no reason why. Yeah, I mean they could absolutely do what they're doing there in Unreal. So or in they could. Looking at the interface, I don't know if that's Unreal. It might be Motion Builder. So they could do it in either Motion Builder or Unreal. Would both do real time motion capture and be able to broadcast it. We've done it on motion in both of those things. Next question.
Paul Terry Wallace from Austin, Texas. Paul asks, is there a way to jerry-rig ChatGPT on your iPhone so you can ask it questions via speech to text and get answers via text to speech? Possibly Harshid or Laura have an answer via accessibility apps.
Probably not yet, but they're basically what's happening is that ChatGPT is just there to promote the idea that they're providing an API that people can pay for those things. And so it's getting us all interested in ChatGPT, and that engine's going to go into, over next year, you're going to see no less than 100 apps that are built around ChatGPT to do exactly what you're talking about, or stick it into, like one of the things I've been thinking about is putting it into Mukana, not so much for to use in the show, but hey, I need to populate Mukana to show to a client or to show to someone for training. Just literally fill Mukana with 60 questions about HDR, and it'll just fill, or about some new movie or whatever, and it'll just fill the whole thing, and then and it puts in the names and everything else, and it could just generate all of that in whatever that client wants to look at. Those kinds of things I think are going to happen pretty quickly. It's going to be interesting. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael asking, in a discussion about independent venues taking minority investments from larger companies, I'm curious as to how such agreements are negotiated. How are such deals typically done, and could ChatGPT tech be helpful in the future?
Go ahead, Courtney.
Lawyers, that's it. They have lawyers, they have legal teams that negotiate all their contracts for them, and especially ones where they're sharing, especially if they want to share a name or have a naming rights to something. Those are big agreements negotiated by large lawyers who get millions of dollars in payment. You're not going to do it yourself. And ChatGPT, lawyers have so far come down on the side of anti-ChatGPT because they're afraid of losing their jobs. So probably not.
It's hard. There's the devil's in the details. So usually lawyers, are good at putting things in that you don't notice, and ChatGPT might not notice it'll be like two words or one word or a period in the right place can change the entire meaning of the contract. And so I'd want a smart human to work on that for a while. Next question.
From Paul Terry Wallace in Austin, Texas. Paul asks, Chris, will you make a video on your truck setup for Zoom? I want to do this.
There you go, Chris. This is going to be the new thing. Before it was drawing programs and teleprompters and stream decks. Now it's going to be road kits.
I'm a little worried that I made this a public thing. This is something I've been talking about with a couple of friends for about 4 or 5 months. It's not going to happen quickly. I have other issues, other more pressing things, but it's a fun little
Chris, I'll send you a video from it this weekend. I'll just put the whole thing together and send it to you.
Are you going to install the gear in my truck too?
No, in my truck, in my van.
So
you're like, hey, here's it working.
So I will tell you this. Like, just cut me off. Just mute me when you're done hearing. You lean toward, some people want to go to using an iPad to run this thing, and I don't think so. I really want the full flexibility of the full Mac OS, plus all of the other things that you could do. I'm probably going to mount like about a 17-inch, probably vertical display next to, I have a Ram truck that has a very large 12 and a half inch display vertical already. I'll probably put it next to that, kind of in the passenger knee area. But I have big plans. I was going to mention it at the top of the show, but Trish was still here, and I didn't want to have her come unglued when she heard what I was thinking about doing.
You're going to do what to the truck? Just don't talk about the drilling that's required to make it all work.
I can mount it. The good place to mount stuff is using the bolts that hold your seats down. You slip little things underneath there.
Yeah, I have
that part figured out.
I have the Dodge Caravan, so I've got all those railings for the seats that I can attach things to. So I'm pretty excited about the idea. I've been thinking of putting a whole production kit in there, ATEM camera system that I can pull up, and Keenan has me inspired that I should put that all in there. So we'll see. All right, now we are jumping to our next hour, the second hour here. And Laura Thompson, our own Laura Thompson, is here and here to talk about the Wave web plugin. This is not Waves. There's nothing. It doesn't have anything to do with the audio. It just has to do with actually looking at websites in relationship to accessibility. Laura, do you want to take it away and explain a little bit about how it works?
Good morning. Yes, let me do just a couple things here. I'm going to share my screen, and I believe our crew is ready for this. Okay, so this is the Wave plugin. What you're actually looking at here is the light version of, actually, no, that is officehours.global that you're looking at there. This is the actual plugin right here. Chad posted the link earlier to where you can get this. There are 6 tabs across here that I'm going to go through relatively quickly. You can get 6 types of information out of this plugin. Errors that are things that do not meet the web content accessibility guidelines. Contrast errors, which are specific to text on the background, and that gets a little bit complicated. We'll look at that a little bit later. Alerts. The difference between an alert and an error is an alert is something that might possibly be an issue for someone with a disability using assistive technology, but human needs to decide. They can give you information. Features are items that have been implemented on the site or software that enhance the accessibility. Structure shows the different HTML and Aria elements that have been implemented on the web page, and Aria are the feature. Aria is a specific type of accessibility feature, but they are often used wrong. And I'm going to show you some of that here in a minute. So looking at this is actually officehours.global, and I think if I do, I don't want to switch it back because it will really mess with things, and the back end team is doing some stuff to actually make this look okay going out. So we only have 2 errors on this entire page, and they're just missing form labels. But if I click on the details tab and I click on one of the missing form labels, it will actually blink it, and I can go to there. It tells me it's a missing form label, tells exactly where it's at in the page. And if I click here, it'll take me to the next tab. And this reference tab gives you the error. What I love here is the algorithm in English. So it tells you exactly how it found that, what it's looking at, how to fix it's right here. And then the compatible WCAG standards are linked right there. The next tab over is the order. So this is going to tell you how a screen reader what landmarks the screen reader can see and what order it's going to read them in. Your structure, this shows you all your structural components. And it will show you that right there, they skipped the heading level. It shows you the headings, but there was a heading level that was skipped. And you can go back to the reference and get the information for that. And then the last one is the contrast tab. And the nice thing about the contrast tab is you can actually live play with the colors to enhance or change the contrast and see how that would change your accessibility levels. The other example I have here is actually, this is Mukana. This is the current light version of Mukana. So there are 8, which is not the one with the YouTube embedded, but the simpler one. There's 8 errors, a couple contrast issues, 15 things, 3 structures, or 3 features, 16 structures, and 9 Aria elements. I'm going to go ahead and stop the share for now. But it's
and where do people find this website or this plugin?
This is on webaim.org. It's webaim.org. It was actually posted. The exact was posted in the chat. Chad posted it before the first hour this morning in the event chat. The direct link. And
it's free, right? It's just something you can add to Chrome.
This is free. What I'm running is free. There is an API and some more like developer focused that you can pay for to get into.
Right.
What I found is very, very nice about this is, as somebody who uses assistive technology on a daily basis, one of the big struggles is talking to the people that write the software.
Right.
And I have found this to be a very user-friendly, and I guess that's the best word, is user-friendly way to go to a company. And a lot of our software now is running inside of the browser.
Right.
And that is the nice thing is there's a lot of things, but there's a login. This I can get around, I can get behind logins and actually look at the website inside of this. What makes this so different from most others is I can look at things that are behind a login. I can log into the page. I can then go to my browser, pull this tool up, and look at a page behind the login. I'm not sending a link to another site for them to do and send me back a report, which is unique. There's a lot of things out there that Accessibility and a lot of the other things will say that they'll give you a free accessibility report. You send them a software that's behind a login page and they're like, we don't know what to do with this.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, Laura, thanks for sharing this. This is really good. I have a client who they actually got sued because they're an investment company, and somebody read their website, took the advice from their website, lost an enormous amount of money. And their argument was that, well, I couldn't read that line. I couldn't read that because the contrast was wrong. And so I do think that there's a little bit of ambulance chasing, if you will, in the legal world, where people are like, they're like just looking for trouble, right? They're looking for people to suck money out of. But from a professional standpoint, it's obviously very important that we make things accessible, but knowing that there is legal ramifications available, sometimes that's the thing that pushes people. I mean, we'd love it if everybody just wanted, to be friendly and allow everybody to read everything. But some people get motivated much more by money. It's good to know that there's other reasons besides just,
And I think that what's really interesting about the plugin is that it's very specifically quantifies what the issues are. Like it's one thing to say, oh, it's low contrast, but being able to say this thing is checking off all the you're literally checking off the all the little check marks that need to be done. That, hey, we need to go through there and fix these things. And when that gets to 0, it definitely protects you to some degree, but it also makes it more accessible and makes it easier probably for crawlers and lots of other things to do what they need to do. I mean, one of the things that we saw with captioning, which I thought was really interesting, is captioning was something that captioning and live streaming is really hard. Like it's buggy. Everyone complains about what words were used. It doesn't match up. It's expensive. There's just lots of things about captioning that we always joke that it's, it used to be we joke that 1% of the it was 99% of the job and 1% of the viewership was watching these captions, because it was just the amount of work that we did to make sure that captions worked is stunning. And it really didn't feel like it was worth it, except for the fact that, what happened was we got really good at it. And then Facebook started putting it in their stream, and suddenly people wanted to see captions before they chose to hit the video. And they wouldn't go to videos that didn't have captions going across the bottom of them. And it just created an explosion. And then we were really glad that we had spent all those years, working on captions. And I think that with a lot of these accessibility features, it's not just the market that you're serving. It's getting good at technically making sure that you're technically correct, because there's a lot of benefit to it later, or there's a lot of potential benefit to it being there in that process. And it's it makes a lot of things better. Accessibility, not just for folks that need it, but for the entire production process gets better because of that. Yeah, go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, I noticed that it allows a webmaster to get good information on how to repair their website to make it more accessible, friendly. I see that. The other part is, does it help you if you're viewing a website to better comprehend what the website is meaning to do? In other words, does it call out things enough that you won't trip over them or make a mistake, or does it make suggestions?
Not really. Where I find I use it the most is when I'm trying to have a conversation with a website developer or an app developer to it makes it more tangible for them what I'm experiencing.
And is it, if everything checks off on your on Wave, do you find that website is now usable by you? Is there anything that it doesn't catch that you wish it caught? Can't hear you.
Actually, no. I haven't found anything that it doesn't catch that there's some things that are completely invisible to like tooltips. That's the one thing I guess I would say is I had a situation where information that we needed was now created like a tooltip pop-up. Mm-hmm. And that was one thing that it couldn't see it because literally it was invisible to everything. And I don't know exactly how this particular website did this, what it did, but that was a long conversation. And the biggest thing I had to do was show them that when you put it into when you turn the style off, that entire information was gone.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Let's go to the first question.
And it's in from Paul Terry Wallace in Austin, Texas. Paul asks, how do you evaluate the accessibility of a web page? Are there automated tools that do this?
And that's pretty much Wave, right? It's the automated tool that...
Well, Wave is the best of it, because Wave is it starts with automation, but then they have a very big, you need a human to look at these. Like you see, there's more on both those that I showed you. There were more alerts than there were errors. The alerts are literally, it says, hey, this is a possible problem. You need to have a human go in here and kind of figure this out and figure out why and how and what the extent is.
Got it. Yeah. Next question.
Paul has another question here from Austin, Texas. What browser is the most accessibility friendly and runs Wave the best? Chrome, Firefox, or Edge? And what other browser extensions are widely used for accessibility?
I will say Google Chrome is probably your best, because that does make Wave's cross-platform. What you just saw there was I was running it on a Macintosh. So yes, it does make a difference But by far, I've used both. The Mac platform is better in a lot of respects. And I will do that now. If I'm having issues, I will run it on the Mac and I will turn around. Literally, I have a PC sitting about 6 inches to my right, and I will run it on the PC because sometimes you get slightly different information, which is helpful.
Rashid?
I have found that it depends also what screen reader you might be using, specifically if we're talking about browsers and some of the functionalities, because these guidelines are just one component of the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, otherwise known as WCAG. And what happens here is
Can you explain
NVDA.
what that is? Can you say that again? What?
Sure. It's Content Accessibility Guidelines. There are 13 of them, but they have 4 pillars. So if we think about just us in general, we might lose our sight, so we might go blind. We might be low vision, so we might need something to get zoomed in. We might lose our hearing, so we might need a better captioning system. And we might lose mobility. So we might need some functionality that I could access a computer with a joystick or with a computer keyboard only and not have all of these extra things, So these guidelines basically help pave the sidewalk, per se, of what accessibility is or what structure there is. Because you get sued, and what do you have to say? Well, the color contrast wise, what about if you're colorblind and you can't see certain colors, right? So you have this compare and contrast of how can I get these guidelines across to the public, and we have revisions of them. There are 3 levels right now, and with the levels is A, AA, and AAA, and that's more so to deal with government and entities of even educational properties, because level 2 is what we're all going to reach mostly. Level 3 is really hard to get, and that's going to be kind of what Alex is referring to. What about your checklist has 0 things wrong and 0 things wrong with it? There's still things to be done. It's more of a super duper RFI, if you may. So that's just a little bit of the WCAG. And with browsers, again, just to come back to the questions, Firefox works best with NVDA, JAWS works best with Chrome, and obviously with VoiceOver being on Mac and even on iPhones and iPads, Safari is the better browser for that.
And next question.
Paul Terry Wallace in Austin, Texas is asking, what screen reader do you use with Wave? Do you just use one screen reader?
Go ahead, Laura.
Nice thing about Wave is designed to not need a screen reader. You don't have to have any screen reader knowledge to be able to. It makes what we hear visual and tangible to the developer, which I think is amazing. And the barrier to entry on Wave is actually quite low to understand what it's giving you back.
You go ahead, Harshid.
Again, Laura mentioned it. You may not need the screen reader, but if I were to, again, it would be browser specific. So if I were to have it on Chrome's plugin, I would be using JAWS, Job Access with Speech.
Next question.
Douglas Carmichael asking, does Wave take into account the mobility disabilities who may use alternatives to the keyboard, eye tracking, single switch access, etc.?
Go ahead, Laura.
I have not dug super deeply into this, but I would think that it's looking at the code for that. I've not seen anything specific to that. But it would be something to look into further. And part of the reason we're doing the second hour, part of the reason we're doing this is to, we're going to take this into after hours and kind of dig into this a little bit more and look at some things that we can't look at here.
Harshid?
Let's say if we told everybody to take Photoshop and learn it in one day, it's kind of like this. We could teach you the layers and buckets and stuff. So with the WCAG guidelines, having something like alternative keyboards and such is part of those guidelines. And it just depends on what perspective you're trying to get the the product. Like perceivable is where you have your alt tags and stuff. It's how we perceive things. But there's also operability in the WCAG guidelines as a pillar. So how does things become more operable, and keyboards and such would fall under that category.
Next question.
Next question coming in from Paul Terry Wallace in Austin, Texas. Paul asked, should I add a Wave link to my websites, which are mostly running on WordPress?
Yeah, go ahead, Laura.
My answer would be not necessarily, because at least not public facing, because they would have to download it, add it to their browser. And those of us who are using Wave already have it added. My recommendation would maybe add Wave to your browser and run it yourself and look at what it tells you how to fix and what to do. So if you're talking about having it on all your browsers, absolutely yes. Having it public facing available on websites, I don't see as much of the point without education.
Harshit.
You might also do an A/B test. So there's a product by Google, Accessibility Scanner, and it does similar things as does Wave. So grab both products and run something at it with both products of your own, maybe your website or your app, and see what results you get and contrast with that.
Next question.
Next question coming in from Bob Sturdivant in San Antonio, Texas. Would it make sense to have a set of buttons on each page that would switch everything to page view that is specific to that disability, since some companies have specific color schemes?
Go ahead, Laura.
There are products out there that will do that. I know Twit runs one. I cannot remember the name of it at the moment. It's helpful, but it's not the be all end all. The biggest websites are continuously needing to be, unfortunately, evaluated by a human, because the computer and these checkers can pick up so much, but it's a race out there, and every time something changes, you've got to check everything again, and it's really a thing. Particularly on the development side for Windows, because we get a new version of JAWS sometimes every 4 to 6 weeks because of changes on the operating systems on Windows and the changes in the browsers.
Next question.
Next question from Paul Terry Wallace. popetech is powered by Wave. What does this do as a site scanner?
Laura, do you have?
But I've not seen that. I assume it's a bigger version of what we just looked at. It's the same API. It's an API running inside of something else that's doing the exact same thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next question.
And next question is coming from me. What is the one thing that a web designer can do to improve their accessibility? For example, what are the most common errors?
Alt tags. Make sure that you have.
And can you explain what alt tags are for folks that are listening and haven't had to deal with those? Alt
tags are where you go in and tell, there's a way in code, and I'm not a developer, so I don't know, but basically you go in and you tell, this is what the picture is. This is what the picture is. It gives you you're just tagging it to tell the screen reader, read this. This description goes with this. And that is one of the biggest things you can do to create the accessibility of your website. I was looking to see if I could find.
Harshid?
Again, I'm gonna go back to the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. If you kind of follow through with those rules or regulations of what needs to be done, things become better and better finite. So alt tag is alternative tagging. So if you have a picture of a dog, a brown dog, and that doesn't explain much, but then you say a dog named Paddywhack, a corgi. Well, you might have more picture, or oh, that's somebody that we know's dog. And so it's adding more context, and it's making it more understandable. It's giving more of that understandability of what's going on the web page. That also goes through some of the alerts and stuff. So if forms aren't labeled, you might have, hey, sign up to our website's mailing list, but you don't register that email is not labeled. The screen reader is not going to know that that's asking for an email. Instead, it's just going to say box. So that could be really difficult if you're even sending out documents to people and it's like a PDF and it just looks like a bunch of blank forms and those form elements aren't being read to others. So that could be a little tricky to get across. And that's why when you're working with different documents, even if it is a PDF, you might take that PDF and then convert it for web. And that becomes a WordPress kind of document that you want to put out there, or you want to add that image to your document on your website. And you would put a captioning, and that captioning would say, okay, there's this table or there's this image here, and the image is of XYZ, and that's just giving you context of what's on the webpage. The text part, the paragraph, is just simple paragraph and things of that nature. That's why headings become really important, because you have like heading 1, 2, and then 3. It's just breaking it down. So heading 1 could be mixers. Heading 2 could be the brands, Yamaha, Sony, blah, blah, blah. And then if you want to go heading 3, it's which one have balanced or not balanced. And that's just informative way of breaking things down. And that's what we learned in writing a paper. But it's the same principles that go on web design when you're introducing it to a screen reader and such.
Good, John.
So Harshit just said the first thing you learn in best practices for web design is to use alt tags, because they're super important for SEO as well.
Right. So, and that gets back to something that I was talking about a little bit earlier. Of a lot of times we think of the accessibility as only accessibility, but John, can you explain a little bit about how that affects SEO?
Yeah.
And for those listening, search engine optimization. So just SEO.
So Google crawls the inner tubes. It has since day one, and their whole goal in life is to create a ranking system for websites based upon how many external links they find pointing to your website. That's 90% of SEO is how many external links are pointing to your website. So the more descriptive you can be on those pages, especially tagging those pictures with an alt tag, is super important in SEO, because now they get a clear information of your content on your page, because, well, with AI, they can describe the content without having an alt tag. So we'll see where that goes eventually. Yeah. But today, all that information, the more information you have on your page and the more external links that you have pointing into your website, causes your SEO to go up.
Oops, sorry. Next question.
David Brady from New York, New York. For a corporation that has lots of websites from different verticals within the company, can a product like Wave be used to audit these pages for compliance? Are there methods to automate any evaluation methods?
Go ahead, Laura.
I'm going to be first to say that if you automate it, you're getting 60%. But the problem, a program like Waves will give you that 60%. And there are other, the plugin is only like the bottom level of what Wave does. Wave is put out by WebAIM, which stands for Accessibility in Mind. And it's a .org. It's a huge website. There's a screen reader survey they do every couple of years. They have the Million Website survey. So it's a great, that entire website's a great source of information. I come back to it over and over and over again. But the bottom line here being is you need a human to make decisions about the human experience. No AI, no machine learning has gotten good enough yet, and I say yet, to actually to evaluate the human experience with any particular website.
Yeah, and I think that that's going to be the case for some time. But I mean, AI will get better at it, but I think that there is still just a lot of processing that's required with almost anything when you're talking about these fine details. Next question.
Paul Terry Wallace in Austin, Texas, back again. Can you give us examples of sites that have high and low accessibility scores and things that please you and bother you about popular sites? What does officehours.global score?
Go ahead, Laura.
Last time I talked to Ken, officehours.global was running above 95% accessible, and I don't want to go outside of our website and the properties we own and show things, particularly on the less accessible side, because it's not good for the companies. I don't care who they are. So, but things that bother me are going back to the structure and the order of a page. If you can't get to, I have enough sight that sometimes I can see, but I can't always comprehend what I'm reading. And if I can't get a particular part of a website to read a paragraph to me because it's coded in some weird way, I have to say, I am the first person who absolutely did a happy dance the day Flash died. But that's a whole nother, because they used to put things behind Flash players that were text to prevent quite often piracy and things like that. And it was, there's a word I can't think of right now, where you basically pirate somebody else's text as your own, plagiarism.
Right.
It particularly to prevent plagiarism, but it also absolutely locked the screen readers out. So I was probably the first person to do a happy dance the day Flash died.
You might have been the first, but there was a lot of us. So we were not. Flash wasn't the most popular thing by the time it ended. Next question.
Next question from Paul Terry Wallace again in Austin, Texas. I was blown away when I just ran, and he's referring to a link to Wave. It's unbelievably good for testing your sites. Can someone run this as a screen share to show the panel what this does? Use officehours.global or any site for a demo just to show it.
Go ahead, Laura.
That would take me a minute. I don't know that I can, but let me work on it.
Okay. All right. Next question.
And it's from Paul. What importance is alt text? Do you get irritated that web authors ignore this?
Laura. Or Hashi. Go ahead.
So with alt tag or alt text, it's, again, you want to provide enough context to your storybook, right? So if you have a website that is about stories and you're looking at a cover, well, what does that cover tell you? When you go to the bookstore, what does the cover tell you that's on the bookshelf? It's the same principle here. So if the book cover is of a man and a horse and a pond, well, those are three elements. And in your mind, you might get it's a Western, maybe it's a cowboy, but it gives you some kind of imagery. And so adding just some sort of linkage to your page or a theme to your page can help you. So at Office Hours Global, we have our alt tag saying maybe our logo. And the OH space days, we might have had image of the rocket, a 18-foot rocket ready for launch. Right. So that's giving you some kind of imagery that it's the image of that or the picture of everybody in the OH space crew, which is a huge thing of photo, like so many people, but each person was tagged. So I could have went each one person by one person and known, okay, that's what Keenan looks like. Okay, cool. Oh, okay. Everybody says Talek is really tall. That's a tall man over there. So, people identify even with low vision and other things. So it's important to have that.
Next question.
And from Simon Ray in Shrewsbury, UK, when writing the alt tag for a video on a website, should you describe the thumbnail image, the content of the video, or of the both?
Go ahead, Laura.
You want to be as concise as possible while still being as descriptive as possible. Long alt tags can be an issue because you got to remember the screen reader user is listening to that sometimes very quickly, but we're also making decisions about when to hit next. Basically, usually it's the tab key based on what we're hearing in the first 1 to 2 seconds. on each. And Paul, that link that you had is exactly what I was showing earlier. It brings down the side. I can go back to my screen. When I put it in, it brought up exactly what I was showing earlier. This is what it brings you to when you put that link in. And all I had done was turned off the style so that we could see much easier where each of the icons were to click on to reference over here. So this is with the style on, this is with it off. So, but yeah, that is very much, it's a lot of really good information.
The next question.
From Chad Lafarge in Columbia, Missouri, what's the practical difference between alt tags and Aria-labels?
Go ahead, Laura.
Aria-labels, I'd have to refresh my memory, but they are more, there's more to an Aria-label. And I've not dove completely deeply into Aria. I do know that they prefer alt tags are preferred over Aria-labels because Aria, too heavily used, is not a bad thing, but it's harder for a lot of things to work on.
Go ahead, Harshit.
I'm going to give you a perspective of how I use it as a screen reader user. If you were on a website that had a button that's a drop down, and that might be an Aria controlled button element, and then, or you might use an alt tag or something to label it as a link, or maybe just use a link instead and not even an alt tag. If you're using images, you might, but it's those little intricacies that makes it unstable sometimes. But as Laura's mentioned, it's good to know both element types and the main differences. So alt tags typically, again, go for images, graphics, and stuff like that. Aria controls are more of elemental stuff that might do drop downs or might change stuff on the website. So I would say they reach more into controls rather than anything else.
Next question.
Next question in from Paul Terry Wallace in Austin, Texas. How important is contrast in accessibility of web pages?
Go ahead, Laura.
Contrast is huge. That's probably one of the number one errors you see is the contrast errors. And it can take something from, particularly for your low vision. Remember, when you're talking the blind and visually impaired community, very, very rarely are you going to get someone who has no perceivable, usable vision. So the contrast is, and you can get people, there's a population of particularly the male population that are, I think it's red-green colorblind. Contrast can also be an issue for them. And you don't necessarily have to talk to somebody who's using a screen reader for contrast to be a huge issue.
Okay, one other good example. And it's not just red and green. People think it's red and green, but it's also things that have red and green in them, like orange and yellow. So Sound Devices has a lot of people have this problem. Sound Devices on their little interface, post and pre-fader are yellow and orange. And at a distance, anybody that has any kind of red-green sensitivities will look at it and not be able to make a decision about what does that actually mean, And so it's very, very difficult. Those wrong colors. so anyway, Laura and Harshid, thank you so much for joining us for this second hour. I think we're going to keep on coming back to accessibility. We'll look at other ways to do it. We've talked about captions in the past. We'll talk about more of that as we move through the year. But I think that it's important that we keep on coming back and touching on these things so that we're both sensitive to it, but also understand how to get it into our workflow. A lot of the problems that we end up with is that we get asked to do something like this. So someone's in production and they get asked to do something like this, and then it's a huge lift. Like, oh my gosh, I don't have any idea how to do this. I don't know where to start. I don't even know what to look for. And it's really, really important that we get our heads around it and experiment with that. And we will be continuing to experiment with accessibility features in addition to HDR and surround and everything else.
We're going to look at Alex.
Yeah, and we have one more question that came in real quick. But before your final thought from Paul, go ahead and read the last question.
Last question from Paul. My websites are getting horrible accessibility scores. I wish more people knew about this.
Yeah, exactly. So us getting more sensitive about it. But I think that, you'll see us continue to, obviously the site, Ken's done a great job at making the site very accessible. And we'll continue to tie that together as we move forward. But you'll also see us experimenting with other things that we can do within the realm of budget and so on and so forth. But like automated captioning and so on and so forth is something we're definitely looking at for what we're doing on YouTube and other areas. Go ahead, Laura, on the final thought.
One final thought is that to Paul's comment, there is also, go look at the Million Website Survey from that same website. It's a mind-blowing. They took the 1 million most popular websites and ran an accessibility test on the 1 million most popular websites. officehours.global is the exception. Ken has done an amazing job. Ken and I have had long discussions about the officehours.global, and he uses the IBM accessibility checker, which is known to be the most stringent in anywhere given. I think he said at one point, officehours.global actually scored higher than IBM's own website. So, which I thought was kind of amazing because that's due to the dedicated, of our web team here. And also just thank you so much for thinking about it. And it really is, I go back to it time and time again, our vision statement, a global conversation where no one is left out. So.
Yeah. And that's what we're going to keep on working on, so in figuring out how this becomes accessible and how the content continues to become more and more accessible is something that we're going to keep on shaving away at. Some things are harder than others, but we're going to, we're really glad that Laura and Harshit are here to kind of hold us accountable, and that we have someone that's here all the time as part of the teams in the panel. And, I think we've made a lot of upgrades because Laura and Harshit are here to really provide the guidance that we need to do that. Most organizations aren't as lucky to have that. So yeah, Mitchell, you were going to say something?
I just want to remind folks that Laura will be over in after hours for the first hour and a half or so to answer any additional questions you might have.
That's great. All right. Well, thank you so much, Laura and Harshit and everyone on the panel. I can't do this without you. And thanks to our producers for all the great questions for the first and the second hours. Good conversation. And of course, thank you to the incredible team 7 days a week that comes out and makes sure that the show actually happens. This is not a normal Zoom call. We don't just get on, and we used to a long time ago. We got on and we just kind of did Zoom, and it was just me turning the thing on. It's no longer that. It's a huge village in the back end that's making this all happen every single day, volunteering their time. It's just really amazing. So thank you so much for your work. And now we're going to jump into After Hours. 66,000 miles, 107 kilometers, 1,000 kilometers.
My truck is going to have OBS in it, Alex.
It's an OBS. Yeah. Mine's going to have Memo Live, so we'll just see how it goes. I'll have the Memo truck. The Memo van. I'm going to put
Maybe get Oliver to sponsor it.
I'm going to put a sticker on the side that says OBS stinks.
Wow.
I'm just kidding. I just wish it worked better on the Mac.
It runs fine for me.
Okay.
I do a lot of stuff with it.
Okay.
I don't composite things, but I use it as a switcher. It works fine.
And if you barely use it, it works great. Okay.
Exactly. That's my strategy. That's been my strategy for my whole career.
Yeah, exactly.
Do barely anything very well.
And everything works.